Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
Hi, I'm Terri. I'm an alcoholic. And I want to thank Maury for asking me to come share and wish all the CHIP people and the birthday people happy birthday. After everything they said, I can't imagine there's anything left for me to share, so we'll just see what happens. You know, I've been up since like 3 o'clock in the morning, and I remember when I was new, I used to wonder why everyone who ever shared at the podium's eyes were all bloodshot. You know, I'm like, dang, they look high, you know. And now it seems like every time I share, Visine or not, my eyes are bloodshot. So, you know, they used to say, be careful what you judge, and that's definitely the case. But, so I'm sitting down there, and I don't know what happens to you when you get really tired, but I get a little punchy, and I have this imagination that just starts working. You know, my mind just kind of wanders into weird thoughts, and every person, I swear, that came up here, the first like 4 or 5 people, looked like different actors and actresses to me, you know. It was like, you know, the Marlon Brando look, and the Muriel Hemingway, and the Winona Ryder, and I was like, stop, Terri, stop. Listen, just listen, shh. You know, I don't know if that ever happens to you. It's really embarrassing if you're in a business meeting and your mind wanders like that and you're just sitting there going, come on, focus. So, but I'm glad to be here, and I really like what everybody had to say, and it's really true that, you know, for some reason, it just seems to me like we have the opportunity to touch people in a way every day in some way or another, whether they're in AA or just out there in the market or wherever. I don't know about you, but I feel really compelled to reach out to people, which is like such a weird thing, you know, because I'm really not that way, you know. I mean, if you ever think about, if I think about how I am when I'm considering going to a meeting or, you know, AA meeting or a business meeting or going to work or anything that involves anybody other than myself, basically, I just think, oh, God, do I have to do it? And, you know, what am I going to say, and oh, when will I be able to come home, you know, kind of thing. And it's like every time, you know, it seems to me like every day or at least a couple times a month, there's my husband's getting a phone call. Well, honey, I'm over here. I'm not going to make it home because this happened, or I saw this person, or, you know, just some escapade. Today it was a lady walking along who was lost, confused or whatever, and so I was supposed to be going home to cook dinner, and I called him, and at like 5:15 I said, honey, I found this lady, and you know, she doesn't speak any English, and she's really old, and she doesn't seem to know where she's going, you know. And he's like, Terri, be careful. I'm thinking, what could she do? She's like 4 foot tall. It's like 5 in the afternoon, and she's like really small and 88 years old. But he worries, I guess. I guess you would too if you were married to me, because I'm sure that Vince worries about Peggy all the time. I mean, we are kindred spirits, me and this woman, and if there's a crowd, you're going to find us in the middle of it trying to work things out for everyone. Okay, now what's the problem? Okay, we can work on this, you know. I used to live next to a high school, and this Hamilton High School, and he would come home and I'd be down there in my socks trying to convince kids not to bang a guy's car with a baseball bat because the guy tried to run him over or something. It's like, stop, now don't do that. The police are going to come and you're going to go to jail, okay? I thought my mission in life once I got sober was to save everyone. And I've been trying ever since. And I can remember someone saying to me early on, you know, Terri, you can't be perfect. You know, you're not God. And I would like have this totally shocked look on my face, because I would think, like, how did they know I was trying to be God? You know, I mean, aspiring to God, that seems pretty like good, you know, a good way to apply your gluttony. You know, let's just be a little more spiritual than, you know, you are today. And I can remember being probably in my first I don't know, 2 or 3 months sober, and just getting to a place where sobriety was just very painful to me. I mean, breathing was just so exhausting to me and uncomfortable for me, and it just was, what it was is I was getting to that place where I was going to have to start exposing who I was to someone, and I didn't want to, I really didn't want to, and I'm telling you, just breathing in and out just hurt my feelings. I could barely stand it. And I can remember sitting behind the Alano Club in a van with the man who I'm now married to, but we weren't even dating then. He was just a guy hanging around the club, and I was in the van going, if I let them know who I am, they'll kill me. And he said, no, they won't, Terri. And I go, they killed Christ, didn't they? He goes, honey, you're not Jesus Christ. I'm like stunned. What do you mean? I mean, I had this constant what do you mean thing going on. What do you mean? If you don't drink, you won't get drunk. What do you mean? I just really didn't understand it. And people used to say, I used to notice that if you come up to the podium and you're new and you cry, people will say, good share. Thanks for trusting us. Keep coming back, honey. You're doing great. If you get up and you feel good, they just go, okay, well, you just keep coming back. Things will change. Like it's not valid, because you're happy and life's good, and oh my God, you have a thing about looking good. This is an issue for you. You're going to have to work on this. It's like, what do you mean work on this? I mean, before I got sober, I couldn't put on makeup. I mean, I put it on, but it never stuck. Did you have that sweating thing? I mean, I had that sweating thing. It never, ever stopped. I can remember my first meeting, I was in a hospital meeting, but I wasn't in the hospital, and but I was like the sickest person in the whole room. I mean, I was like shaking. I had stains on my arms. It was very embarrassing. And when they asked for newcomers, I said to the person next to me, who's that? And he goes, you. I mean, you could just tell. I used to wonder, how could they tell? How could they tell? How could they know I'm new? Sometimes, when I turned about 6 or 7, it's funny how the book says after we're sober a while, we stop really showing all that we went through drinking, that some of us have been through horrendous things. I mean, I've been beaten beyond recognition. I've been raped. I've been crushed between cars. I mean, I've had a lot of shit happen, I mean, I can relate to the woman who says that we are like shit magnets, you know what I mean? Like, wherever it can happen to anyone, it seemed to happen to me. And, I mean, I can't even believe my face looks like it does, and that was like my one little gratitude thing when I got sober, is that I didn't look on my outsides like I felt on my insides. And over the years, people actually stopped pointing to me and asking me how much drugs were these days, It's like, has that happened to you? I remember I got sober and I had to go to one of those diversion things for a ticket, and they're doing the whole drug pitch, and he points to me. Out of everyone in the room, I am probably the only sober person and proud of it with my 30 days, and asked me how much an ounce of cocaine would cost. Now, why would you look at me, of all the people here? It was ridiculous. I was so offended, I went into a dry drunk all the way home, 4 in the afternoon. I am just absolutely out of my mind on the freeway, just freaking out that I would still look like a drunk and a drug addict. I mean, geez, you mean I don't look better already? A lot better. But anyway, when I was probably we get to be 4, 5, 6 years sober, and we look pretty good. People come to meetings, they don't even know why we're here. They say, don't look like an alkie to me. What's wrong with that person? She looks so good. So that's how I felt. People started hiring me, and, people trusted me with their money. And, I really started thinking, hey, I have it going on. I have all the answers. Me and God were one. Got the spiritual thing going. Life is good. It's pretty smooth. And I go to the Alano Club. Well, first thing that happened actually is I went on a sales call, because, I'm in sales. Many of us are, and I am, no exception. And I went on a sales call to this retreat. Well, it's not a retreat actually, but anyway, it was run by this little tiny priest, like a monk. A Catholic monk of all things. And, I have all the jewelry, but I don't go to church. And anyway, but I'm on a sales call, you understand. And so we're sitting down, and he says to me, Brother Patrick was his name. He says to me, so, and he's got the little Irish accent, oh, what parish do you belong to, right? And I'm on a sales call, you understand? And I'm trying to get the account, and so I just made one up. You know, I thought, well, Virginia goes to St. Mark's, so I said, St. Mark's, lie to a priest, you know? I thought I was going straight to hell, you know? I mean, I played it off all the way to the end, and, you know, lies are terrible because once you say them, then it gets worse. He's like, oh, I haven't heard of that one. And I'm just like, oh, well, yeah, you know, it's you know, west. It's way west from here. And I'm driving away from there just feeling like absolute shit. I'm telling you, after all of these years sober, I felt like I could drink over this, seriously. I felt so bad. I'm in my car going, oh, this is it. This is it. I lied to an 86-year-old monk. You know, I mean, really, this is pretty bad. I mean, it's just short of lying to God himself, you know? I mean, as I'm leaving, he's telling me about St. Peter and who I'm going to see when I go to heaven. I felt like it was a test in Catholicism. It was really stressful, and I didn't get the account. But anyway, I went to the Alano Club. I drove straight to the club. I mean, thank God there are Alano clubs because they're open all the time. And you know, we hate them when we're in a good place. But man, when we're in a bad place, we don't care about the smoke, the funk, nothing. You know, we're just glad the door's open and there's somebody there who we can view as a lower companion and tell them anything. So I go to the club and I run up the stairs, haven't been there in forever, and the guys are like, how you doing? I go, oh my God, I just lied to a monk. And he's like, you're kidding. They all start laughing, and I feel a little better. Because, you know, they didn't go, I mean, isn't that a fear for you? Like, if you're going to tell someone the truth, this is the reaction we are so afraid we're going to get, whether it's inventory or just some little truth about ourselves, anything that the person we're talking to is going to go, you did what? You know, thank God that just has never happened to me in AA, but they didn't. They just laughed. And so I felt a little better. You know, the laughter in AA just seems to heal me a little bit at a time because, you know, I take myself very seriously. It's so tough to be so codependent with yourself, you know, that, and they laughed a little bit, so I got right on the phone. I said, you know, I'm going to have to call this guy and confess. What can I tell you? You know, I have to call and make amends, you know. I mean, it doesn't hurt this guy, but I could drink over lying to this monk because it's so upsetting to me. You know, I'm like, oh my God, I just can't even believe this. I mean, here I am walking on water, one with God, and I lied to a monk. I mean, we have not grown nearly as much as we thought. And so they were real nice. They let me use the phone, and I called him, and, you know, it was really an embarrassing call. I don't know how many of you have had to make these. I'm sorry I lied calls, but they are very good therapy for people who lie habitually. You make 2 or 3 of those and it will never happen again. I mean, and it's not like we lie about the big stuff. We lie about really stupid stuff, like how much weight we've lost or how long our hair is since you've seen us and what parish we belong to when we don't go to church. And so I just called him and I just told him, I go, hi, Brother Patrick, this is really, you know, kind of embarrassing to tell you, but, you know, I don't know why, but I lied. I just lied. I don't know why I lied, but I did, and I don't go to church, and, you know, I'm sorry. It was so humiliating. I mean, needless to say, I never followed up on the first sales call. I mean, that was it. Brother Patrick was home free. I never followed up on that call, and you know, I learned little lessons of humility like that. You know, another time I went to the club, and, you know, I was watching him share some guy who was just like fresh out of jail. You could just tell, you know, how they that look, you know, the teeth missing, you know, they're all emaciated, the spiky hair, the tats, the whole thing. The guy was a wreck. And he's up there and he's just sharing away, and my friend who saw me get sober, he's like, hey, Terri, you see that guy up there? You know, and I'm like, yeah, I see him. He goes, that's how you looked when you got here. He goes, except your hair was a lot curlier. Because I had like a perm that was like afro, you know, was tight. Because, you know, you like to get them and then not have to do them again for 2 years, you know, those kind. I mean, really, it was intense for me, and I thought I had it really going on, you know. I thought you wanted something I had when I got here. You guys kept saying, keep coming back, and I thought, what's the matter with them? You know, what do they want? You know, I had nothing. I had a pair of tennies, some fatigues, 1 pair, and some white t-shirts, you know, stuff I'd taken from guys when I left. You know, girls do that. When we're drinking, we always take things with us. I don't know why. Men make their mark, we take things with us. But pretty soon we got a little something from everyone. Oh, and that was George, and that was John, and when we miss them, we just put their shirt on and never call them. So now you know the secret of how we let you go. We just take something, and then that's it. That's all we need. Little comfort. So I've been sober for like 13 years, and you know, like Gina said, it has not been necessarily an easy path. You know, I'm one of those alcoholics that knew right away why I didn't get sober, because I didn't like sobriety. I mean, some people get sober and they're very happy with sobriety. You know, it's like they're sober now, and so it fits the rest of their sober life. Well, I didn't have a sober life. I had an alky car, and I had nothing. So when I got sober, it was like facing reality under the worst possible conditions, you know. It was like learning to snow ski in a blizzard. It, you know, really was as bad as it could possibly be, and thank God I didn't know it at the time, you know. Newcomers have very, very high tolerance to discomfort. You know, at least I did, because that was my basic way of living for all of my life. I mean, I like what Gina said about having the ism before she ever drank, because I definitely did too. My mom said I was either very happy or very sad. And I was one of those kids that was habitually lost by my parents in the store. I don't know. Did that ever happen to you guys? I mean, when I was little, all I could see was ground, and it seemed like every time we stopped, they left me. And I would end up in the shoe department surrounded by salesmen with ice cream cone. But it's nothing like looking up and finding what you thought would be there, not there anymore. It's an experience that even after all these years is something I'm very uncomfortable with. About 2 years ago, my grandmother and my grandparents got sick, and it turned out they had a whole lot of money. And because they were like alcoholic type personalities, they lived in tremendous poverty. And I cannot tell you the psychic shock of finding out that they had lived this way voluntarily all these years. It was like you telling me that that table is now a sofa. I mean, it just challenged my whole, you know, sense of balance. And sometimes I think that anytime we find out something or experience something for the first time in sobriety, it's like that. Because I really don't have any frame of reference for anything that happened before I got sober. You know, I did a lot of things before I got sober, but nothing that supports, you know, any kind of social activity that I do now. I mean, I had 2 or 3 sentences, none of which I can say from the podium on tape, and that was the extent of my thing. You know, it was either my way or the highway, and, you know, my life was really simple because I just got up, got high, and passed out, and got up, and got sick, and got high, and passed out. That was really the only variable, was the puking part. Sometimes I would, sometimes I wouldn't, you know? And life was pretty simple then. When I got sober, life became very intense. Very intense. People said I was intense, but, you know, it wasn't me. It was life, was very intense. I don't know about you guys, but the whole sunshine, everybody moving, people talking directly to you, these were our big problems for me. Big problems for me. People would ask me questions I didn't know the answer to, which was almost any question. Didn't know anything about anything that was going on. I mean, when you were strung out as I was in my disease, I didn't watch TV. I didn't really, you know, interact. I didn't know who was president. I remember being disrespected by the Thrifty's drugstore counter boy, who asked me why didn't I know this camera was discontinued 3 years ago. Well, because taking photographs was not anywhere on the top of my priorities for the last, you know, 8 or 10 years. I mean, that's just the way it is. Shopping, grocery shopping, buying food, spending my own money, you know, dealing with the parent thing. I had a daughter who was 9 years old by the time I got sober. None of these things did I know how to do. And I like the person who said he was really sensitive and he drank to be less sensitive, because I heard early on someone say, I drank to feel and I drank not to feel. And that was me. And I was thinking earlier this evening, because you know how we do the before pitch, the during pitch, the after pitch. And, you know, I try to minimize the before pitch because it never matters. You never remember what you were going to say when you get up here anyway. But I did think of that, you know, maybe it was a control issue from the very beginning for me, that I just didn't want to do the human thing. I wanted to be able to control my feelings, my environment, you know, my interactions with other people, and I used drugs and alcohol I don't know what it takes for other people to surrender. You know, for me, it took a lot for me to surrender. I don't know that I would have surrendered any other way. In fact, you know, so much of my sobriety has been very, full of trauma and drama, and but I wonder if I would have surrendered any other way. At one point when I was probably 8 years sober, I ended up in therapy because I was breaking down, I mean physically breaking down, and among other things, and they wanted to medicate me. And I can remember telling this lady that I just know that, well, first off, I told her that I would love for my answer to be in a pill form. And that was really the only reason I was there, because I knew, you know, she'd already suggested it, and then I came back to explain to her why that couldn't be. But the truth is that I wanted her to convince me why it could be. And it was a very iffy place for me to be. It was very hard. And I remember saying to her that, you know, I just know that I need to have a spiritual experience to get through this place, that somehow there's going to be a surrender with this, a change with this, and I'm not sure it'll occur if we do anything to stop the motion that I'm in now. Do you understand? If you minimize my pain that much, maybe I won't get it, and I need it. I mean, I really need it, and I've had enough to know in sobriety what the benefit is on the other side of the pain. If I just hang tough, if I just show my ass, tell you to help me, you know, I'm falling apart. I mean, you know, and I've had to say that a lot in the past couple years with the losses that I've experienced, you know. I've gone out of state and told people that, you know, I'm right on the edge. I don't know why I'm sober. All the reasons I had for doing what I did are gone now. So why am I doing this? You know, and people would be shocked. Can you imagine an alcoholic being shocked hearing that? What planet are they from? I mean, give me a break. Where is your level of reality? You know, I mean, the book talks about it all the time, you know. I mean, we run into stuff all the time, you know. Thank God it's not every day, because we couldn't take it. But every now and again, we have to grow along spiritual lines, and unfortunately, we're not changing kind of people. If we could get by just going to work and going back to our little room where we live and not interacting with anything or anyone ever again in life, we'd be just friggin' fine. And we wouldn't change one iota. And thank God that's really not an option for us. You know, some of us it is. But for me, it hasn't been. I've had other people in my life, they just will not go away. And you guys ask me to speak every damn time I go through anything. It's like ESP, thank you very much. You know, it's like I remember when I was separating from my husband, I had like 3 places to go speak. One the very night I made the decision, you know, and, you know, so everything I've gone through in front of you guys. I mean, thank God, you know, whatever it took for me to get sober, and it took a lot for me to get sober, that I had to go through all that to know that drinking wouldn't work. Because if I could believe it just for 5 minutes, I would have chose it. I would have chose it, because I chose it a lot of times before. You know, I guess my final surrender was, my initial surrender was, I went to jail for attempted murder and kidnapping. And I thought that was a kind of awkward thing to happen to a girl from Orange County. I don't know. I mean, I had reasons. I had my reasons. You know, we're not insane. We're provoked, right? We know justifiable anger, and you know, I was provoked. I mean, the guy wouldn't take no for an answer. What was I supposed to do? Kill him seemed like the only option. And I know you guys have dated people like that, men and women alike. I don't know what you say to a person that just does not get it, you know. Anyway, and the guy was stalking me, let's face it. He was stalking me anyway. So, of course, you hear I still have all my reasons, but the truth was I was out of my mind. I was completely insane. I was arrested by SWAT, and trying to bail out, you know, I don't know what's going on, you know. I want to call my mom, you know, who I haven't spoke to in 5 years. She's scared to death of me, you can imagine, you know. And I'm telling the police, look, if you had come when I called you 3 days ago, I wouldn't be in this mess. So I even found a way to blame them. I mean, justification we can do, can't we? So I got out of that and went to Oregon and rolled my car and broke my neck within about 2 months and was discovered by a deer. So those were my two precipitating incidences to sobriety. I mean, it wasn't all. I also had a total hysterectomy, but I don't really know how that fits in. And then I got sober. And then I went out. And I took a guy with me because, you know, we don't like to drink alone, and all good addicts need a thief. So I took one with me because I didn't have any handy. and we went to Moon Shadow so that when we, went down, we'd at least start from high points. So we went to Malibu and ordered 2 drinks apiece. The woman's like, "Are you expecting someone?" "No, it's just us." And we stared at each other as we drank, to see if anything was going to happen, because you guys really instill the fear of God in people. It gets worse, and I'm thinking the only way it could get worse is if an airplane crashed on me. You know what I'm saying? Because my life sucked before I got here. I can't even imagine anything that could possibly happen to me that didn't happen repeatedly before I got sober, but the airplane thing. So there we are at the beach, far from the airport, drinking our drinks. Nothing happened, but I did lose my little cross on my earring, and 2 days later, Farillo slipped on Hill Street Blues. So there was evidence that this was not going to go well. And then the only date I had while I was out there was some guy, a sales guy I'd met on the phone, and he comes in, and I go, "Want a beer?" And he goes, "No, I don't drink." And we have a very distinct way of saying that, something that we recognize the minute we hear it. I said, "You're sober, huh?" He's like, "How'd you know that?" Because he was one of those closet AAers, Oh my God. There's something about the way we say, "No, thank you, I don't drink," that, you just really get it. It's like, oh, this is an issue, we try to play it down like, "No, thank you." But there is just some little edge that we have there that just, another alkie can spot it in a second. Even the practicing ones, they zero in, don't they? And then they just watch. Like, well, what do you do? The classic, I'm a practicing alcoholic response to "I don't drink" is, well, what do you do? And how do you have fun? Never? You never drink? No, never. And then I went out, and I took him with me, and within 6 weeks, he shot and killed a friend of mine in front of the church I was baptized in, and I was crushed between the cars and broke my foot, and ended up driving all of the victims he shot himself in the foot, don't you know? And because he is an alcoholic, make no mistake about it. And then off we went to the hospital with everybody in tow while he's telling the victim that we're saving him. "Thank you, you just shot this guy. Did I miss something here?" And so my life got insane really quickly, and it took me 7 months to make it back to the program. And in that time, I was like a Statue of Liberty here. I remember that was my first real stint with therapy, with antidepressants. I can remember saying to them, and at this point I really hadn't experienced any long-term sobriety at all, saying to the therapist, if I could just get sober, I could work through this. And I don't even know how I knew that. I was in so much pain. I felt so responsible. All my life, I had, from the time before I started to drink, I started making decisions on my own when the people around me weren't making the right ones for me. My response was, "I'm out of here." And I left home, for the first time probably when I was 11 or 12 years old. And by the time I was 14, I never looked back. I was hitchhiking across the country and everything. I'm a person who will go to any lengths to find a comfortable place. And, all I ended up was here. And I went on antidepressants and all this kind of stuff, and eventually made it back to AA. But you know what I kept hearing the whole time I was coming back was, if you keep coming back, you'll hear what you need to hear, to do what you need to do to get free. And it's like I never knew why I drank, except I knew I wanted to get free. I just wanted to get free of everything I could think of. The drugs, my head, all the hurt. I feel like I was hurting all my life before I got sober, and constant pain all my life. I think one of the first miracles of sobriety was when the pain left. It just was unbelievable to me. Maybe I'll share it with you because I really don't share it that much. I was probably, the funny thing is when you drink, it's almost like, how when people take acid together, then they all have the same trip. Well, when you drink, it doesn't seem to slow up that little pain process that you go through. It's like you drink and then you come back, but you're still sort of at that place that a person that didn't drink. So I drank and came back, and I still had to go through this emotional sobriety thing. And it was a bear. And I think it was really the day of that whole diversion thing, because I started crying at 4 in the afternoon and could not stop. And I am not a crier. I used to cry only in the shower. So even I would not know. Just get me under the water, let me wash my hair and cry in here, leave me alone. And then of course I was so paranoid by then, someone had to sit out on the toilet and talk to me, so I knew that they didn't come in and kill everyone while I was in the shower. I don't know about you, but I had this weird fear about being killed naked. You know, I mean, it's like, give me a fighting chance, some jeans, some boots, something, you know, don't catch me in the shower. But anyway, I was just wigging out. I just couldn't stop crying at all, period. And I got home and I fell asleep because, you know, you get these dry drunks, and I fell asleep and I woke up and the phone woke me and I was crying some more, and my daughter was there, and needless to say, she was very upset. She didn't know what was happening. And I went to a party, and the guy who's my husband now broke up with me at the party, and he was there with his ex-girlfriend. So it was just a night of surrender, okay? So I am dying, and it wasn't him, but I just couldn't stop the crying thing. And then someone said to me, he shared a story with me about his own emotional surrender. You know, that there's some point that we hit in our recovery. In my case, it was early in my recovery, where that old feeling that we've had all our life is just so prevalent there. And I can remember screaming like to God, you know, I can't live with this feeling. You know, I can't live with this feeling, you know, and I can't even really describe it to you because I don't have that kind of recall. One of the blessings in sobriety is I don't have recall for negative emotion. I just don't. I can't like pull it up now. And it's weird that before I got sober, I was always in negative emotion, and now it's gone from me. I don't feel sad, you know, and I can't remember what that felt like really. I can just remember how I was. And at any rate, I was really wigging, and I started trying to call my sponsor, and I was calling everyone I knew, but it was like a Friday or Saturday night, and no one was home because in those days we partied, you know, we went to dances, we were always gone. And so I was just like this dialing, hanging up, dialing. I called her, left a voicemail, and I hung up, and I kept dialing, and one time I lifted lifted my finger off the button that hangs it up, and she goes, hello? And it was my sponsor. I couldn't believe it. And not only that, she got through on her first try. And not only that, her roommate, who's not even an alcoholic, had heard my message from like 2 rooms away, and which she never does, and called my sponsor where she was in the valley. And then my sponsor tried me on the very first time she got me. And she told me to get on my knees and ask God to remove the fear. Well, I didn't know about the fear, so I asked him to remove the fear and the pain, because the pain was really bothering me. I didn't know nothing about fear. And then she talked to my daughter and calmed her down. And then she told me to get into the bathtub. Now, I can't even describe, you know, how overwhelmed I was at this point. I was out of my friggin' mind. I was raging. You know, I was throwing things. I mean, I was really tweaking. It was like I was either going to get some relief or I was going to be unable to stay sober, period. It just wasn't going to happen. I didn't give a shit. And she goes, go in the bathtub and get your favorite spiritual reading and just read it over and over, a little paragraph. And when you finish the reading, say, God, please remove this fear and this pain. You are my, you know what she said to say? You are the source of, you know, my comfort, the goodness in my life, the love in my life. Please remove this fear. So that was kind of the prayer she gave me, you know, just keep telling God what he is, you know. I call it the kiss-ass prayer. And then ask him for something. So this is the later version. At the time I was like, okay, you know, thinking of everything. And I remember she said, get in the tub. And so I went and got in the tub. And I mean, I was just, you know, wide open. And so I had the thing, and I'm in the tub, and I just was in so much pain. And then all of a sudden, the thought occurred to me, how long do I have to stay in this bathtub? And you know what? And I mean, it really was only probably 5 minutes in the tub, right? I'm not a tub person, you could tell. I said, how long do I have to stay in this tub? This is my thought. And then my next realization was that I wasn't in pain anymore. It was just completely gone, just like that. Just like that. I was so tired, you know, for like 2 days after, you know, like the loss, the whole thing. Because even negative things in our lives, you know, when it goes, it's still a loss. And so there's still that experience of heaviness. And so I had that for a couple of days, but I'm telling you, I've never been back to that place. And I've been through a lot of things in sobriety. I mean, a whole lot of things. My daughter ended up being an alcoholic and an addict. You know, her life has not gone well. And, you know, she's in a very, you know, tough situation now. She had 3 years of sobriety, and she went out, and she's still alive, but, you know, she's in jail, and she's facing really serious charges of you know, murder with special circumstances. So she's facing the death penalty, and she just turned 23. And you know, my grandfather died, and my grandmother has Alzheimer's, and I became the custodian for both of them and had to take their car, move them out of their home, and do all that kind of responsible stuff you do when you don't want someone else to do it. When you want, if someone's got to do it, you want it to be someone who loves them. And so that's what I did. You know, you gave me the strength and courage to just love them and to do whatever had to be done. And I would come back to you all beat up and scared and just really jacked up. I can't even tell you the level of loss it was for me. It's funny, the other day I was looking at pictures. I celebrated my 10th birthday here, and a lot of you were here, and because I have pictures of you, and I had my hair up, remember, and I had like this sparkly thing on that my daughter gave me, this like a rhinestone necklace, and I had this pretty dress on that Peggy helped me pick out, made me look so skinny. Everyone who sees the picture goes, "Oh, you were so skinny then," but I wasn't. I looked just like this. It was just a clever dress. And I was so excited. I was so nervous. And I got up on that stage and I told you guys, I dressed up for you. What do you think? And you guys all went, "Yay!" And I mean, I was so happy, you know. And it's just so incredible how, you know, we have these wonderful times and then we have these incredibly difficult times. And I know today we're that song, we're the term, the best of times and the worst of times, because while all of these things were going on with my folks and my daughter was, you know, shooting the speed in her arm till it was a big hole and I mean, unbelievable. It's my only child, my absolute heart. And, you know, all my life I really had lived for these people, and they were all gone, almost seemed to me in a heartbeat. And yet during that time I got a couple of state licenses. I started a different career. I just went on with my life. I went to meetings. I worked with other women. Fortunately at the time had women in my life who were going through some very hard things, two of them, because I don't know about you, but when I'm in deep shit, I don't have much tolerance for I'm having trouble at the job. Do you know what I'm saying? Save it for someone else who's having trouble at the job. I'm trying to accept the unacceptable here, and I really just do not have time for bullshit. The ship is sinking, everyone's on their own. If you're trying to swim for shore like me, let's go, let's do it. But if you're out there bitching about the waves are cold and it's too hot and you can't see the shore, then hasta la vista, baby, because I'm a survivor and I ain't going anywhere. When I go out of this life, it's going to be a clean and sober woman with some kind of dignity. I'm just not going to let anything take me out. I visited my daughter last weekend and she said something about, I look better, I'm getting stronger. And you know what? The human spirit is incredible. The difference between pain and no pain is just an instant. And what seems the most abnormal thing in the world to us eventually becomes the norm. I cannot even tell you what that experience was like for me in February. I was having nightmares. I thought I was going out of my mind. I was going out of my mind. I drove home from the police station screaming up the street, just screaming my friggin' heart out. And I just kept thinking, I'm going crazy. I'm just going crazy. I was terrified of everything. It was just such a shocking thing. And yet, even then, I said to my husband, I know it's just a matter of time before my psyche adjusts to this information. It's just a matter of when. And I wrote my daughter a letter, and the closing of the letter said that our life is very different now, and it may never be the same again. But we will find a way to have a life, a good life, no matter where we're at or what our circumstances are. We'll find companionship, people to laugh with, people to cry with, and we will go on. That our life is different, but it's far from over. And so I share that with you because together we can do anything at all. Thank you so much for my life. God bless you.
Sorry to interrupt your viewing. Taper Dave here. Just wanted to take a second to ask you to like and subscribe to my channel. Let me know if you like what you're listening. I've got some very good talks here, and this one's a great one. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Tell me what you think. Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.